there were some rumblings, but I really just go on my way.
Brad Pitt is no stranger to the spotlight, but it's not just his Hollywood fame that sets him apart, it's his heart. When he spots a 5-year-old girl alone and scared on a bus, his protective instincts kick in. What happens next? It's a moment that will make you believe in the power of kindness. Trust us, this is a story you won't forget. An ordinary day turns extraordinary. It was an unusually calm morning in Los Angeles when Brad Pitt decided to forego the comfort of his chauffeured car for a rare, incognito bus ride. Known for his love of blending in and observing the world unnoticed, Pitt enjoyed moments like these to reconnect with the simplicity of life. Though Hollywood royalty, he often sought refuge in the everyday experiences of ordinary people. The bus was crowded, filled with people lost in their thoughts or scrolling through their phones. Brad Pitt sat quietly on the bus, gazing out of the window as the streets of Los Angeles passed by. The hum of the engine and the rhythm of the city allowed his thoughts to drift back to his early years. Born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and raised in Springfield, Missouri, Brad recalled the simplicity of his child counselor as the eldest of 3 siblings in a close-knit family. His parents, a trucking company owner and a school counselor, instilled strong values in him. He smiled, remembering Sunday church services and the small-town charm that shaped his upbringing. He had always been a dreamer. In high school, Brad was active in sports, debate, and theater government, but it was the movies that captivated his imagination. He remembered sneaking into the drive-in theaters and watching films that transported him to other worlds. Those moments planted the seed for a dream he dared not yet name. After high school, he pursued journalism at the University of Missouri, focusing on advertising. Yet, as graduation loomed, Brad felt a pull he couldn't ignore. 2 weeks shy of completing his degree, he packed his car and drove to Los Angeles with just $325 in his pocket. Sitting on the bus now, Brad chuckled at the thought of those early days, delivering refrigerators and dressing as a chicken mascot for a fast food chain while chasing auditions. Hollywood wasn't kind to newcomers, but he was determined. Slowly, roles started coming, first in commercials and small TV appearances, and then a breakthrough. His charming, rebellious turn in Thelma and Louise. That role transformed his career, turning the small-town boy into a global heartthrob.
Take that cash, put it in that bag right there. You got an amazing story to tell your friends. If not, you got a tagline to tell.
Reflecting on the journey, Brad felt grateful for the struggles and triumphs that had shaped him into the man he is today. As Brad emerged from his thoughts of the past, the lively chatter and hum of the bus brought him back to the present. Amid the bustling scene, something unusual caught his attention. A little girl, no older than 5, sitting alone on a worn seat, clutching a teddy bear that looked as lost as she did. Her tiny face carried an expression of fear and confusion, her wide eyes darting around as if searching for someone to make her feel safe. Brad's heart clenched. The image of the girl stirred something deep within him, a mix of his own childhood memories and his experience as a father to 6 children. He recognized the fragility of a moment like this. Years of parenting had taught him to sense when something was off, and this girl's quiet distress was impossible to ignore. For a moment he hesitated. Should he step in? Was it his place? But the thought of leaving her there, scared and alone, quickly erased his doubts. Glancing around, he realized no one else was paying attention. She was invisible to the world, but not to him. A little girl's silent cry for help. As the bus continued its journey, Pitt discreetly observed the little girl. She was small, frail, and visibly anxious, her wide eyes constantly scanning the bus as if searching for something familiar, something safe. At each stop, she stiffened slightly as though bracing for something unknown. Her body language was clear. She was unsettled, and yet she wasn't crying or calling out for help. She was just waiting. Brad's instincts, honed over years of parenting 6 children, kicked in. He had witnessed firsthand how children, especially when they were feeling anxious or lost, often communicated through silence rather than words. Her demeanor suggested that there was something more to her quietness than simple shyness. Maybe she was unwell, or perhaps she was just lost, separated from her parents in the maze of the city. Brad hesitated for a moment, unsure of the best course of action. He didn't want to rush to judgment. Maybe her parents were sitting on a different part of the bus, unaware of their daughter's nervousness. After all, children often felt secure when they were in the same place as their caregivers. He gave the situation a few more moments, observing her closely, trying to gauge if this was a case of a child simply needing some reassurance from a parent, or if something more serious was happening. With his extensive experience working with humanitarian efforts, Brad had a deep sense of empathy for people in distress, especially children. He had been involved with UNICEF, tirelessly advocating for the rights and safety of children around the world, and had worked to rebuild homes for those affected by disasters like Hurricane Katrina. His involvement in these causes wasn't just professional. It came from a place of genuine care. He knew the importance of giving people space to handle their issues, but he also knew when to step in. His mind flashed to his own kids, how they'd looked up to him for guidance in moments of fear or discomfort, how they'd sought reassurance in his presence. He realized then that he couldn't wait any longer to act. A Hollywood hero steps up. As the bus made its way toward the final stop, Brad's gaze never left the little girl. She hadn't moved, not once. She was still sitting, clutching her teddy bear tightly against her chest, her small body rigid with unease. The other passengers, busy with their own lives, were oblivious to the young girl's distress. The bus came to a halt, the doors opened, and yet the girl remained frozen in place. No one seemed to notice her, or, if they did, no one approached to offer help or even check if she was okay. It was in that moment that Brad knew he couldn't wait any longer. He slowly stood up from his seat and began walking toward her, his every step deliberate yet gentle, as though he wanted to make sure he didn't startle her. As he approached the girl, Brad spoke gently, his voice soft but confident. "Hey there, how are you doing?" he asked, keeping his tone light and non-threatening. The girl, who had been staring down at her teddy bear, hesitated for a moment before looking up at him. He knelt down to her level, his posture relaxed and friendly. "I noticed you've been sitting here all alone," Brad continued, his voice steady but compassionate. "Are you okay? Do you need help with something?" For a moment the girl didn't respond. She just stared at him, as though weighing the situation in her mind. Brad patiently waited, giving her the space to process. His face remained open, reassuring. He wasn't in a hurry to force her to speak or act before she was ready. Finally the girl spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I got lost. I can't find my mommy," she said, her eyes welling up with unshed tears. Brad could feel the weight of her fear, the vulnerability in her voice. Brad's heart went out to her. Without skipping a beat, he gave her a warm smile, trying to ease the panic that had taken hold of her. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll find your mom," he reassured her. "I'm here to help. Let's get you back to her, okay?" At that moment, it wasn't Brad Pitt, the famous Hollywood star, standing in front of her. It was simply a caring adult who was there to make sure she was safe. There was no fanfare, no cameras, just a man who had seen a child in need and was doing what he knew was right. The bus was almost empty, and the driver, who was preparing to end his shift, turned from the front of the bus and glanced over at Brad, his brow furrowing in concern as he saw the girl still sitting, looking lost and upset. "Hey, Brad, is everything okay over there?" the driver called out, his voice laced with curiosity. "This is the last stop, and I'm wrapping up here. What's going on with her?" Brad looked up at the driver, his calm expression not changing. He gave the driver a reassuring nod, still kneeling down beside the girl. "She's just a little lost. Looks like she got separated from her mom. I'm trying to help her find her way back." The driver said, "You're doing the right thing, but we should probably check with the authorities if we can't find her mom." Brad nodded, appreciating the driver's concern. "I'm going to stay with her until we figure this out. Let's just give it a moment. Maybe her mom's still around or she's getting off at the next stop." Brad, the driver, and the little girl were all waiting for the next step in what was now a small but important mission to reunite a frightened child with her family. Finding her way back. After what felt like hours, the authorities finally arrived. Brad, ever the picture of calm and composure, had already provided as many details as he could about the little girl, her age, appearance, and the story she had shared. He spoke methodically, his words precise, making sure the process was smooth and efficient. As the police began their search for the girl's family, Brad refused to leave her side. He could have easily walked away. After all, he was a global movie star, famous for his roles in films like Fight Club and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and had more than enough reasons to avoid drawing attention to himself. Yet his presence was unwavering. It wasn't about his celebrity status. It was about doing what was right. Brad had spent years in the public eye, navigating the complexities of fame, love, and loss. He had faced personal challenges, his high-profile marriage to Jennifer Aniston, followed by a tumultuous divorce, and his subsequent relationship with Angelina Jolie. Through it all, Brad had remained grounded, finding solace in his family life and his humanitarian work. Eventually, the police were able to locate the girl's frantic mother. When the mother arrived, her relief was immediate and overwhelming. She clutched her daughter tightly in her arms, tears streaming down her face as she thanked Brad repeatedly, her gratitude impossible to put into words. Brad, ever humble, nodded graciously, his eyes soft with compassion. "I'm just glad she's safe," Brad replied simply, his voice quiet yet sincere. He was more focused on the reunion than on any recognition he might receive. The heartwarming truth revealed. As the story unfolded, the mother shared more about their lives. They were new to the city, and her daughter had wandered off during an outing at the park. Her mother had been searching everywhere, terrified that something horrible had happened. Brad listened intently, his focus entirely on the family. He understood the struggles of being a parent and how moments of distraction could lead to chaos. Though his life was far removed from the everyday challenges of most people, his empathy bridged the gap. The incident soon made headlines, not because Brad Pitt was involved, but because of the incredible kindness he displayed. The story became a symbol of compassion and a reminder that even small acts of humanity could create lasting impacts. The mother's heartfelt thanks were a moment of pure human connection, a reminder that even the most famous individuals have the power to make a difference in someone's life, not through their fame, but through their actions. What do you think about Brad Pitt's unexpected act of kindness? Would you have stepped in like he did? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to click on the cards for more heartwarming stories and interesting videos.